You think confidence is supposed to make life easier, more respect, more opportunities, better relationships. But you've noticed something else. The moment you start walking with your head up, people get quieter, smiles get thinner, the room gets colder. And the strange part is, nobody says what they're doing. They start moving against you in silence. It hits at work first. You finally stop apologizing for your ideas. You speak in a steady voice, not a pleading one. You stop asking for permission, like a child. And suddenly, the coworker who used to support you starts questioning every detail. Your manager starts checking in more than usual. A project you were promised gets delayed. Your name gets left off the email thread. You watch someone take your suggestion, repeat it louder, and then get credit for it. Nobody calls it sabotage. They call it process. They call it alignment. But you feel it. Something in them woke up. Then it shows up in relationships. You stop chasing. You stop over-explaining. You stop begging for reassurance. You become calm, direct, and slightly harder to read. And your partner starts testing you. They accuse you of changing. They pick fights over small things. They bring up old mistakes that were forgiven months ago. They flirt with attention elsewhere to see if you'll crack. They don't want to lose you, but they also don't want you to be above them. So they try to pull you back down without admitting they're doing it. They want the old you back because the old you was easy to steer. And then it comes from friends and family, the people who swear they love you. You start improving. You get in shape. You dress better. You become less available. You stop being the emotional sponge. You start saying no. And suddenly you're too intense, too serious, acting different, forgetting where you came from. They don't say, "Your strength threatens me." They say, "I'm just worried about you." They hide their fear behind concern. If you're confused by this, it's because you were trained to be helpful, obedient, and friendly, not powerful. You were rewarded for being easy to manage. You were praised for being agreeable. You were taught to smooth tension, to lower your volume, to make other people comfortable. So when you become confident, you don't just become more visible. You become a threat. Not because you attack people, but because your presence changes the ranking in the room. This is where Machiavelli becomes your weapon, not as a cartoon villain, but as a clear-eyed observer of power. Machiavelli didn't teach hatred. He taught reality. He taught that most people don't oppose you openly when they feel threatened. They oppose you indirectly. They wait. They smile. They collect allies. They use morality as a leash, and they do it because the most significant danger to their position is not your anger. It's your confidence. In the following minutes, I'm going to give you 6 laws on why confidence triggers silent enemies and how to move through hidden opposition without losing your frame or your soul. Many people will leave because they want comfort, not truth. If you're still here, you're not looking for approval. You're looking for control. Put your phone face down and listen. If this hit you, write, "I am the strategist," once in the comments, just to mark the day your mindset changed. Here's a reality you need to see. The enemy rarely hates you for what you did. They hate you for what your confidence implies. You walk into a meeting and you don't rush to speak. You listen first. Then you say K and do not ask for permission in your tone. You don't fill silence with nervous jokes. You don't defend yourself before anyone accuses you. Your posture says, "I belong here." Now pay attention to what that does to insecure people. It forces them to feel their own weakness. Your confidence becomes a mirror, And most people would rather break the mirror than improve themselves. You assume hostility comes from something you said, but sometimes it comes from what you stopped doing. You stopped seeking approval. You stopped begging for validation. That shift tells the room a dangerous message. You no longer need them to feel solid. And if you don't need them, you are harder to control. Machiavelli understood this instinct. In his world, when a new figure rose, the old guard didn't ask, "Is he good?" They asked, "Will he replace me?" Power is comparative. It is not measured in your heart. It is calculated in the room. When you become confident, you raise the standard. That threatens the people who were comfortable with you being smaller. Your mistake is thinking the hostility is about facts. You think, "But I did nothing to them." Exactly. That's why it's silent. They can't accuse you of wrongdoing, so they accuse you of energy. They call you arrogant. They call you cold. They say you're trying too hard. They're not describing you. They're expressing their discomfort. They want you to shrink so they can relax again. The power shift happens when you stop trying to prove you're harmless. A confident man does not negotiate his presence. He does not over-clarify his intentions to make nervous people feel more at ease. He stays polite, but firm. Machiavelli would tell you, don't try to be loved by those who fear losing status. Love is unstable. Respect is more reliable. And when someone's respect is threatened, you don't win them back with softness. You win by being unmovable. Real-world applications are complex and straightforward. When you feel the room cool down after you speak with certainty, you do not shrink. You do not laugh it off. You do not suddenly become extra friendly to balance it out. That is, you are surrendering your position. Instead, you keep the same tone. You keep the same pace. You keep the same calm. Your consistency tells the room, this is not a mood. This is who I am now. Silent enemies reveal themselves when they realize they are not, returning to the old version of you. Here's another reality. Confidence threatens people who have built a relationship with you based on access. You know this person, the friend who calls when they need something, advice, money, attention, and emotional labor. The coworker who respects you only when you cover their mistakes. The partner who feels safe because you are predictable, always available, and always forgiving. Your old self was a resource. Your confidence becomes a boundary, and boundaries create enemies. The moment you stop being instantly reachable, you watch their mood shift. You don't answer right away, and they keep sending messages, then another. You say you're busy, and they respond with a joke that stings. Oh, big man is too important now. That isn't humor. That is a probe. They are checking if guilt still works on you. Machiavelli's lens is clear. People bond with you for advantage, even if they also feel affection. In politics, alliances form around benefit. In everyday life, it's the same, just dressed up in nicer language. When you gain confidence, you reduce easy access. You stop being the open tap. So the person who benefited from your openness feels a sense of loss, and loss turns into resentment. Notice how they respond. They don't say, "I miss the benefits I got from you." They say, "You've changed." That phrase is not a neutral observation. It's a control attempt. It's a subtle demand that you return to the version of you that served them. If you defend yourself, they win. Because now you are arguing inside their frame. Your weakness is feeling guilty. You remember being the nice one. You think, am I being selfish? That guilt is the leash. Machiavelli would call it a weapon others use to govern you. He would remind you that appearances and language are tools. When someone uses morality to keep you compliant, They are not protecting your goodness. They are protecting their access. The power shift is that you decide that access to you must be earned, not assumed. You do not become cruel. You become selective. You reply more slowly. You say no without drama. You stop explaining every decision. You stop being available as a default. At first, this will provoke silent opposition. People will test the boundary because they hate uncertainty. They will send little jabs. They will guilt trip. They will compare you to your past self. That is not love. That is withdrawal symptoms. Practical application. Choose one area where people have automatic access to you and close the gates slightly. Not with a speech, with behavior. If you always answer instantly, wait. If you always show up, miss one event. If you always agree, decline one request. And then watch. The people who respect you will adapt. The people who used you will punish you. And now you can see who is who. Quietly, without confrontation. Another truth is uncomfortable. Confidence attracts attention, and attention creates competition you didn't ask for. You get a promotion, start a business, or finally start lifting, and your body changes. You walk into a room, and people look. Some are curious, some are impressed, some are annoyed for reasons they can't admit. Because attention is a currency, and your confidence draws it without asking. That makes you a rival, even if you never declared war. At work, this shows up as standards. The same person who never cared about details suddenly cares when you lead. They become strict with you and flexible with others. In relationships, it shows up as surveillance. Your partner checks your phone more. They ask who liked your picture. They seem interested in your schedule in a way that feels like control. In friend groups, it shows up as jokes. They make fun of your goals in front of others, so the attention returns to the group, not to you. Machiavelli would say that when you rise, you create envy. Envy is not loud. Envy is patient. It smiles while it studies you. It claps while it calculates. It waits for the moment you stumble, so it can say, "See, I knew it." That's why some people seem supportive until you actually succeed. They can tolerate your dreams. They can't tolerate your results. Your old behavior may have been to hide, to downplay, to make jokes about your own progress, so nobody feels threatened. You say, "It's nothing," when it is something. You pretend you don't care, so nobody can accuse you of wanting more. But that is self-sabotage disguised as humility. It keeps you safe, but small. The power shift is to understand that attention is not love. Attention is an audit. When people watch you, they are measuring you against themselves. Some watch to learn. Others watch to find flaws. A strategist does not panic under observation. He refines his discipline. He becomes harder to criticize as he becomes cleaner. Practical application. When you step into higher visibility, tighten your patterns. Be clean with your promises. Be calm with your speech. Be consistent with your work. Do not overshare your plans. Machiavelli warned that showing your intentions too early invites interference. Not because everyone is evil, but because many people cannot resist meddling when they feel excluded from your rise. Speak less about what you will do. Let people discover what you did. Now see this. Your confidence breaks the unspoken agreement that you will stay in your place. Every group has a script. The family script says, "You are the responsible one," or "You are the funny one," or "You are the one who needs help." The friend group script says, "You're the one who always pays," or "You're the one who never confronts." The workplace script says, "You're good, but not leadership." These scripts keep the group stable. They also keep you limited. When you become confident, you rewrite your role. Maybe you stop being the peacemaker. You stop absorbing everyone's stress. You stop being the one who takes the worst treatment because you understand them. And the moment you refuse that role, the group feels danger because roles are how they predict behavior. When you stop playing your old part, they lose control. So they try to push you back into the script. This is why the pushback feels personal, because it is individual to them. Your old role made their life easier. Your new role makes them face themselves. They don't want that. So they label you. They call you selfish. They call you dramatic. They say you're going through something. They create a story where your growth is a problem that needs fixing. Machiavelli recognized the logic of maintaining order. In courts and cities, people resist change because change threatens their place. He wrote about how new orders create enemies among those who benefited from the old. That's not just politics. That's your life. When you reorder your social world, the old beneficiaries become silent opponents. Your weakness is that you expect fairness. You think, if I improve, they will celebrate. Sometimes they will. Often they won't, because your improvement highlights their stagnation, and because if you change roles, they must adapt. Adaptation costs effort. People hate effort when they didn't choose it. The power shift is that you stop asking for permission to evolve. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to the old script. You don't become aggressive. You become inevitable. You act like your growth is expected. Because it is. You stop negotiating with people whose identity depends on you staying the same. Practical application. When family or friends question you with that tone, who do you think you are now? You don't defend. You don't preach. You don't try to convert them. You say something simple. I'm focused. I'm building. I'm not available for that. And then you move on. The less emotional you are, the less handle they have on you. Your calm becomes the wall they can't climb. Another law of hidden opposition is this. Silent enemies prefer indirect attacks, because direct conflict exposes their insecurity. If someone confronts you openly, they risk losing the moral high ground. They risk being seen as jealous. They risk being rejected. So they choose covert moves. They exclude you. They spread a slight doubt. They ask innocent questions about your competence. They forget to invite you. They use humor to cut you down. Then, if you respond, they call you sensitive. This is psychological warfare, disguised as social normality. You can feel it when you walk into a room, and a conversation stops for half a second. Then it restarts, lighter, less severe, like they don't want you near what they were really saying. Or you notice your words get repeated back to you in a slightly mocking way. Or you hear that someone mentioned you to someone else, but you can't get the details. That fog is not an accident. The fog is the weapon. Confusion keeps you passive. Machiavelli's world was full of this. He watched people smile while holding knives behind their backs. His lesson was not paranoia. His lesson was awareness. He would tell you, judge by actions, not words. People will say they respect you while they arrange your fall. Their words protect their image. Their actions reveal their intent. Your weakness is wanting to be liked. So you ignore the signs. You make excuses for them. You tell yourself you're imagining it. That denial is exactly what silent enemies rely on. They want you to question your perception. They want you to self-police, because a man who doubts himself is easy to steer. The power shift is to see patterns without panic. You don't accuse. You observe. You collect data. You notice who gets tense when you succeed, who becomes cold when you set boundaries, who suddenly cares about rules when you take initiative. Machiavelli would say, the wise ruler anticipates threats and positions himself before they strike. Practical application. Do not confront every slight. That makes you look reactive. Instead, adjust your placement. Reduce access. Stop sharing information. Limit your reliance. Build alternative allies. In work, that means documenting your contributions, summarizing decisions in writing, and building relationships across teams so that no one person can isolate you. It means making your value visible through results, not through begging for recognition. In friendships, it means not giving your deepest vulnerabilities to people who treat them like entertainment. It means not sharing your plans with a jealous friend and expecting them to keep them secret. In relationships, it means setting boundaries early and calmly, and watching whether the person respects them or resents them. And then comes the brutal one. Your confidence triggers silent enemies because it removes their sense of superiority by rescuing you. Some people don't want you to fail, but they also don't want you to be equal. They want you dependent. They like being the advisor, the fixer, the one with experience. They offer help, but it comes with a hook. It keeps you in a lower position. So when you become confident, you remove their role, and they feel useless. That is painful for them, so they punish you quietly. You see it in family dynamics. The older relative who always had a comment about what you should do. They gave advice even when you didn't ask. You nod, you smile, you stay small. Then you start making your own money, your own decisions, your own rules. Suddenly, they find flaws in everything. They act like your independence is disrespect. It's not. It's just independence. But to them, it is a loss of authority. You see it in friendships too. The friend who always helped you talk to women, or always taught you how the world works, or always positioned himself as the smarter one. When you become confident, you don't need the lessons. You don't need the rescue. And now he has to face a scary question. If you don't need him, what is he? Machiavelli would understand this as control through dependency. A ruler keeps subjects dependent on him, not because he hates them, but because dependency reduces rebellion. In your life, some people keep you dependent emotionally. They encourage your doubts. They remind you of your past mistakes. They stay close, but subtly undermine your self-belief, so you keep coming back for guidance. They don't have to destroy you. They have to keep you unsure. Your weakness is that you confuse their involvement with care. You think, they're always there for me. But ask yourself, do they celebrate your independence? Or do they intensify their presence when you start standing alone? Do they get happier when you win, or do they get quieter? Do they give you tools to grow, or do they give you reasons to stay cautious? The power shift is to accept that support that requires your weakness is not support. It is a contract. And you can end contracts. You don't have to announce it. You stop feeding it. You stop telling them every fear. You stop asking them to approve your decisions. You stop handing them the steering wheel of your mind. Practical application. When someone tries to rescue you from your own growth, you keep your plans private. You say, "I've got it handled." You stop asking them for validation. You make decisions without consulting the person who is always the expert. and you watch if they become offended. Offense is information. It means they were attached to the old hierarchy. If they respect you, they'll adjust. If they need you beneath them, they'll attack your confidence with concern, jokes, and advice. That sounds wise, but is designed to slow you down. When that happens, you don't explode. You step back and keep moving. Now you have the laws. Confidence triggers silent enemies because it changes status, removes access, creates visibility, breaks scripts, exposes insecurity, and ends dependency. The question is what you do with this knowledge. Because knowledge without behavior becomes paranoia. You can't just see the game. You have to change how you move. If you don't apply this, here's what happens. You keep shrinking every time you feel resistance. You keep negotiating your confidence. You return to the version of you that was safe for others. You become the man who waits for approval, who over-explains, who apologizes for his ambition. And you will call it humility. But it will be fear. You will live in a prison built out of other people's comfort. You'll also start distrusting yourself because you'll keep feeling the silent hostility and you'll keep telling yourself it's nothing. That split between your perception and your behavior will make you anxious. It will make you second-guess everything. You will overthink every conversation. You will replay every meeting in your head. You will wonder if you sounded too confident. Then you'll punish yourself by going quiet next time. This is how men lose their edge. Not through defeat, through self-censorship. And that's how silent enemies win. They don't have to defeat you. They have to make you doubt your right to exist boldly. They want you to do their job for them. They want you to lower your own ceiling. If you do apply this, your life gets cleaner. Not easier at first, but cleaner. You stop chasing people who only liked your weakness. You stop leaking energy into rooms that punish your strength. You become more precise with who gets access, who gets information, and who gets your time. Your circle may get smaller. Your outcomes will get bigger. At first, it can feel lonely because you were addicted to being needed. You were used to the emotional noise. You were used to the constant feedback, the constant checking, the constant reassurance. But when you become confident, you stop needing that noise. You start hearing your own thoughts again. That silence is where your power is built. This is not cruelty. This is not gay game. This is understanding reality. Machiavelli looked at the world without flinching. He saw that people are often driven by fear, envy, and self-interest, even when they speak in the language of virtue. He told rulers to manage appearances, to anticipate betrayal, and to build power that does not depend on affection. You are not a prince in a palace, but you are the ruler of your attention, your body, your time, and your future. If you don't defend those, someone else will use them. If you don't rule your attention, someone else will rent it from you. You also have to keep your integrity. Confidence without discipline becomes arrogance, and arrogance invites enemies who deserve it. The goal is not to dominate everyone. The goal is to become unshakable. To be respectful without being submissive, calm without being passive, sharp without being cruel. There's a line from Nietzsche that gets quoted about staring into the abyss and becoming what you fight. That's the warning. You don't need his system. You need the reminder. Then you return to Machiavelli. He would tell you that a strong man does not need to announce his strength. He demonstrates it through restraint, timing, and results. Control starts with your emotional regulation. Silent enemies feed on your reactions. They want you angry defensive and impulsive. They want you to expose yourself with a weak outburst so they can label you and isolate you. So you stay calm. You let them show their hand. You don't demand explanations. You don't chase closure from people who profit from confusion. Control continues with your positioning. You don't place your future in one person's hands. You diversify. You build skills, money, and relationships that do not depend on one gatekeeper. You become harder to corner. At work, you become the man with options. In relationships, you become the man with standards. In a family, you become the man who respects people without surrendering to them. And control ends with your identity. You stop seeing yourself as a good guy whose job is to keep the peace. You see yourself as a strategist whose job is to protect your mission. That doesn't mean you become hostile. It means you stop being naive. It means you understand that the world has hidden opposition, and you move like a man who can see it. So here is your challenge. For the next 7 days, act like your confidence is permanent. No apology for your goals. No over-explaining. No chasing someone who is pulling away to regain control. Don't reveal your plans to people who have a history of doubt. Speak less, but with more certainty. Move slower, but with more intention. When you feel the cold shift in the room, don't try to warm it by selling your self-respect. Let the cold be a test. Let it show you who was only comfortable when you were small. During these 7 days, you will notice patterns you used to miss. You will see who becomes supportive only when you are unsure. You will see who loves you only when you are easy. You will see who respects you more when you stop trying to be liked. This is data, not drama. You don't need to fight everyone. You need to stop giving silent enemies the leverage they crave. When you do this, some people will drift. Let them. Some will test you. Hold, some will respect you more. Notice, and you will start to feel something new. Not arrogance, not hostility, but quiet authority. That is the state where silent enemies lose interest, because you are no longer available as a target. You are stable. You are consistent. You are expensive in terms of access, time, and attention. If you want more content like this, you know what to do. Like the video if it sharpened you. Subscribe if you want a mind built for reality, not fantasies. Share it with a man who's waking up and doesn't yet understand why people are resisting his growth. If this hit you, write, "I am the strategist," once in the comments, just to mark the day your mindset changed. Walk steadily, speak clean, watch patterns, and remember Machiavelli's lesson. The world rarely attacks strength directly. It tries to tame it. Your job is to stay untamed.